Everybody is now just trailing this vehicle. It's starting to pick up speed. The police are all around it. There she goes. That's Schapelle Corby. She's leaving Kuta for the last time.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And has there ever been a media circus quite like it? The return to Australia of the nation's most famous convicted drug smuggler involved scores of journalists, hours of TV coverage and probably millions of dollars.
I just saw Mercedes. Stop. Oh, they've just pushed all the media back quite violently. In there is Schapelle Corby. I've just seen her. She's put a bag up next to her face again.
And the build-up beforehand was just as crazy, with Brisbane's Courier Mail on Friday running no less than 16 pages on her life and times, complete with a front-page demand she now confess, contrasted with sympathy inside the paper for her
endless nightmare.
And, of course, some gratuitous shots of her in a swimsuit. Not to be outdone, her hometown paper had gone one better, with Friday's Gold Coast Bulletin devoting 19 pages of homecoming stories to their favourite daughter.
The cast of Corby. Where are they now?
And even the ABC caught Corby fever, with at least 8 more stories where this one came from.
How Schapelle Corby, the cover girl, was born.
The commercial TV networks, meanwhile, promised to be there with bells on.
Tomorrow, Schapelle Corby comes home to Queensland and only 9 News has exclusive access.
From Bali to Brisbane, 9 News will be with Schapelle every step of the way.
The flight home, the family reunion and her new life back in Queensland. Special coverage from 5:30am through to 6 o'clock. Don't miss 9 News tomorrow.
Yes, 12 and a half hours of breathless coverage, but exclusive access? My eye. Like the rest of the baying pack in Bali, 9 and 7 mapped their attack plans and pursued the armoured convoy from her home to the parole office and onto the airport.
This is going to be a very long trip for her tonight. We're here and we understand that her anxiety levels are incredibly high.
Gee, I wonder why. But she needn't have worried. As camera operators trampled each other to get the shot, Schapelle's sister Mercedes had it all under control, posting video from the getaway car to Schapelle's new Instagram account, which now has more than 150,000 followers.
Oh, they're not letting the media in here, that's great. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, police. Fantastic job, everybody.
At the airport, reporters waited for Schapelle to board a Virgin Australia flight and booked dozens of tickets to stay tight. But the Corbys hopped a little-known regional carrier back to Brisbane and gave them the slip. Come Sunday, back in Australia, the media were up before dawn to watch the circus touch down.
Good morning to you. Welcome to our special coverage. These are pictures of Schapelle Corby's plane arriving back home in Australia into Brisbane for the first time in 13 years.
Then, as a fleet of black vans spread out from the airport towards the city, news crews scrambled desperately to stay in touch.
We're not clear yet on where Schapelle herself is, but we are across all of the details.
Across all the details? As we stayed fixed on a hotel driveway, even Andrew O'Keefe could see what was coming.
For the benefit of Paul Barry at Media Watch, we had nothing to do with this. Of course, we're still culpable for some of our commentary over the last hour.
Indeed they were. Next target was the home of Schapelle's mum.
We have seen a light come on at the top of the house on the higher level. If we can take a look at that now, just through those windows, we've seen a light come on in the last 10 minutes or so.
And with the lights on, a special delivery provided a rare moment of excitement.
In their hands, they had some cakes. They knocked on the door. No one answered. They were about to leave when we told them who lived there. The man, he had a chuckle, and then he took a photo and left the cakes on the staircase where they remain. So no one has come to pick them up, and the media remain on the footpath where they'll stay until they speak to Schapelle Corby.
Yes, that is the golden ticket, the first interview. So, will the commercial networks reach for their checkbooks? And can they pay her without falling foul of Australia's proceeds of crime laws, as Channel 7 nearly did in 2014?
Around 20 agents, many of them armed, arrived at Seven's Jones Bay HQ just before 9 this morning. They rifled through documents, hard drives, anything that might reveal dealings with Schapelle Corby.
The AFP ultimately apologised for that raid and did not bring charges. And as we then discovered, it's actually not a crime for the media to pay for her story, just for Schapelle to receive the benefit. So it can be done, and some are already speculating on how it might happen.
One television executive last night, speaking on condition of anonymity, said,
You buy the production and vision of how she got out of Bali. A figure of $250,000 has been touted. And you get the interview with Chappelle as well.
So prepare for the Chappelle Freedom Special shot by her security company, perhaps with a network interview tagged on. But meanwhile, who gives a toss? Celebrity agent Max Markson reckons everyone does, telling the Sydney Morning Herald,
there will be all the milestones. Her first Christmas home, her first birthday, her first holiday. People will be interested.
But for once, we agree 100% with Carl Stefanovic, who told Today viewers this morning,
Whatever, I do not care. There are far more important things in life than pursuing and losing Schapelle Corby. We in the media have a responsibility to inform, but I reckon we were all made to look like idiots yesterday. And to what end? Where Schapelle is, what she looks like, come on, we know. And you know what? It ain't that interesting.
Indeed. Why worry about the death of journalism if all the media are going to do is chase stupid stories like that? But now, to far more serious matters and the aftermath of last week's terror attack.
Good evening. At least 22 people killed, at least another 59 injured. A suicide bomber tonight being blamed for the explosion at a pop concert at a stadium in the English city of Manchester.
One of the key aims of terrorists, apart from spreading fear, is to divide us against ourselves. And in Australia, the Manchester attack did just that, with the editor of right-wing journal Quadrant Online, Roger Franklin, accusing Auntie of giving succor to the killers of innocent children.
The Manchester Bombers, ABC pals.
Franklin's extraordinary allegation that the ABC chums up with terrorists was based on the previous night's Q&A, where two guests had claimed, hours before the attack, that the risk of falling victim to terrorism is extremely small. Mona Chalabi, The Guardian's data editor, had told viewers...
And actually the threat of Islamic fundamentalism, if you want to view it in terms of number of dead bodies, which as awful as it sounds, is the way to kind of make sense of some threats, actually really isn't that present.
And the distinguished American physicist Lawrence Krauss had added his own graphic illustration.
You're more likely to be killed by a refrigerator in the United States falling on you.
Statistically, that may or may not be true. But as pictures of the carnage in Manchester flooded through, Roger Franklin went on his own rampage in Quadrant Online, calling Krauss a...
loathsome creature, a filthy liar.
And suggesting it would have been far better for the world if the night's shocking violence had been visited on the ABC instead.
Had there been a shred of justice, that blast would have detonated in an Ultimo TV studio. Unlike those young girls in Manchester, their lives snuffed out before they could begin, none of the panel's likely casualties would have represented the slightest reduction in humanity's intelligence, decency, empathy or honesty.
Not surprisingly, reaction was immediate, with Twitter leading the outrage and Communications Minister Mitch Fifield quickly joining in, calling it a new low in public debate and adding...
The comments are sick and unhinged.
And for once, even the ABC's fiercest critics like Chris Kenny agreed, telling his 14,000 viewers on Heads Up...
Now that was disgusting. That was an absolutely sick and reprehensible intervention.
While another right-wing warrior, Nick Cater, who is a director of Quadrant, also condemned it on ABC's The Drum.
I thought that this was a despicable thing to write. This is just absolutely beyond the pale. It is not justified.
By this time, ABC Managing Director Michelle Guthrie had also fired up, describing Franklin's article as vicious and offensive, and demanding that Quadrant's editor-in-chief, Keith Windschuttle, apologise and remove it. And eventually it was taken down, with Windschuttle, who had initially informed the Sydney Morning Herald that the fuss was bullshit, conceding to Guthrie...
You have my unreserved apology for any concerns it might have given you.
Meanwhile, he and Cater both promised that editorial processes will be reviewed. So, who is Roger Franklin? Well, he's a former near lifelong employee of Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, and he has form. When Rosie Batty was made Australian of the Year, he tweeted this offensive comment.
If I disregard a protection order I sought and my son dies as a result, can I be Australian of the Year too?
And 2 months ago, Franklin described Australia's Race Discrimination Commissioner Tim Soutphommasane as a race pimp and sinecured Labor hack. He also constantly refers to Age columnist Clem Ford as chlamydia, and he has described her newspaper as a brain-damaged rag and written...
It's time for the Age to curl up and die.
Indeed, Franklin has always had a way with words, as you can see from this 2009 ABC interview, where he suggested Victoria's Country Fire Authority should be taken
out to the woodshed and beaten with an axe into some other sort of shape.
Franklin's also been in strife with at least one other employer. In 1998, New York's Observer reported he was sacked as a copy editor of the New York Post after altering a reader's letter.
When the reader, Scott Pellegrino, a producer of WEVD-AM's The Jay Diamond Show, called to complain, Mr. Franklin called him a dickhead. Mr. Pellegrino got it on tape.
Quadrant's directors have yet to decide Mr. Franklin's fate. But as they contemplate his record and his future, they might also consider this appalling paragraph from his ABC article in which he visualises Lawrence Krauss being blown apart by the terrorist bomb.
Mind you, as Krauss felt his body being penetrated by the prophet's shrapnel of nuts, bolts and nails, those goitered eyes might in their last glimmering have caught a glimpse of vindication.
Quadrant is not just a two-bit rag, it has a proud and storied history. Tony Abbott has said the magazine has done more than any other to nurture the high culture of Western civilization. John Howard has called it the best Australian publication for ideas in 50 years. And the Australian's foreign editor Greg Sheridan, who is a regular Quadrant contributor, told Media Watch that Franklin's ABC comments were appalling, but
Quadrant is a magnificent magazine of first-class intellectual quality, one of the best of its type in the world, and I am immensely proud to be associated with it.
If Quadrant is to retain that reputation, can it really keep Roger Franklin as its online editor? I would have thought the answer must be no. And finally, as Schapelle Corby tastes freedom at last, another convicted crook has been put in the slammer.
One-time Labor Minister Ian McDonald is preparing to spend his first night behind bars, following in the footsteps of his former friend Eddie Obeid.
Former New South Wales Resources Minister Ian McDonald, aka Sir Lancelot, was convicted in March for giving a mate a multi-million-dollar coal licence for free. Yet one man still seems to believe his mate is innocent. Step forward Alan Jones, who back in 2015, when McDonald was facing charges, declared his treatment by the Independent Commission Against Corruption to be
one of the most disgraceful chapters in public administration ever.
Defending the now jailed ex-minister, Jones told his listeners,
"If you're to believe the headlines, I should say a corrupt Ian McDonald. That is, of course, what ICAC headlines are designed to achieve. Guilt by headline. The headline sticks."
Alan Jones, you see, was sympathetic to McDonald's claim that a mountain of documents exonerating him had been deliberately ignored by the ICAC.
Thousands of pages of evidence withheld, not presented, because it would have proved favourable to McDonald.
And after letting McDonald plead his innocence, Jones finished their chat with this festive sign-off.
Well, this is unbelievable stuff, this. And I'm simply saying at Christmas time, who would walk in this man's shoes? I wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Alan, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to put my case.
Not at all.
So, what of those bombshell documents? Well, the Supreme Court was also convinced he was guilty after a full and fair trial. And Jones has now ended his on-air crusade. But last week he was by his side in court, at least in spirit, to support him.
Alan Jones gives convicted former New South Wales Minister Ian McDonald a character reference.
Sadly, journalists' attempts to get hold of Jones's reference were denied, but we have no doubt it was glowing. So, why did he give it? Well, pick and stick is Jones's motto, and back in 2007, as Media Watch reported at the time, McDonald did him a good turn during a bout of equine flu by allowing horse studs and stallions in New South Wales, in one of which Jones had an interest, to continue business as usual, which prompted Jones, who'd run a campaign to achieve that end, to tell his listeners,
"There is one bloke in Macquarie Street who's been working his butt off and doing a damn good job in difficult circumstances, and this is the Primary Industries Minister, Ian McDonald."
Say what you like about Alan Jones, he never forgets a favour. Pick and stick. And you can read more about tonight's stories on our Facebook page or our website, where you can get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or Media Watch on Twitter. And don't miss Media Bites every Thursday on Facebook, Twitter and our website, and also on iView. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.